Chapter 1. The assignment. Katherine Ryce had always believed she paid attention. It was, after all, the cornerstone of journalism: observe, listen, question. Notice the details others overlook. It was a quiet kind of power, she thought, to see the world clearly while everyone else blurred past. But as she sat at the small desk in her bedroom, the glow of her laptop illuminating a project template she could not fill out, she felt that belief falter. The cursor blinked at her, impatient, as if even it understood how absurd this was. Subject's favorite hobby. Katy leaned back in her chair and stared at the ceiling. The faint hum of the house wrapped around her. Her parents moving somewhere downstairs, the distant clinking of dishes, the quiet rhythm of home. She knew those sounds instinctively. She could identify them without thinking. Yet when it came to her father, really knowing him, her mind went blank. "What is your favorite hobby?" she murmured, tapping the desk lightly with her pen. "Come on, that's easy." Except it wasn't. She closed her eyes and tried to picture him. Not just the outline of him, the tall frame, the neatly trimmed hair, the steady presence, but him as a person. Her father liked. What? He read sometimes. No, that wasn't right. He had books, sure, but she couldn't recall the last time she'd actually seen him read. He fixed things around the house, but that felt like responsibility, not a hobby. He watched the news occasionally, but always with a kind of distant patience, as though he were observing rather than engaging. Katy groaned softly and dropped her head into her hands. "That's ridiculous," she said aloud. "I live with him." The assignment had seemed brilliant when Professor Leland announced it. The class had buzzed with excitement as he explained the reasoning. How journalists must build profiles, how understanding a person required peeling back layers, how proximity could blind you as easily as it revealed truth. "Choosing someone close to you will challenge your assumptions," he'd said, pacing in front of the whiteboard. "You will discover what you think you know is often incomplete. That discomfort, that's where the real work begins." At the time, Katy had felt a spark of anticipation. She loved mysteries. Real ones, not just headlines or crime stories, but the kind buried in ordinary people. The quiet complexities, the contradictions. The idea of turning that lens onto someone she knew felt like an invitation to uncover something meaningful. And selecting her father had felt obvious. He was the foundation of everything. The steady force that held the family together without ever demanding recognition. If her life had an axis, it was him. But now, staring at a simple question she couldn't answer, she felt a flicker of something unsettling. Maybe she didn't know him at all. Her gaze drifted across her room. Books stacked in uneven towers, scribbled notes scattered across her desk, drafts of articles pinned to a corkboard. Her life was full of curiosity, of investigating, of digging deeper. So why had she never asked him anything? The realization settled slowly, like dust she hadn't noticed until it caught the light. "I'm a terrible journalist," she muttered. A soft knock at her door interrupted the thought. "Katy, you still alive in there?" Her mother's voice carried a warmth that immediately eased the tension in her shoulders. "Barely," Katy replied, sitting up. "You can come in." The door opened, and her mother stepped inside with the effortless grace Katy had always admired. Even after years of marriage, she still carried herself with an energy that was both gentle and vibrant, a quiet contrast to her father's stillness. "What's got you sounding so dramatic?" her mother asked, leaning against the doorframe with a smile. Katy turned her laptop around. "This." Her mother walked over, glancing down at the screen. "Ah, your big journalism project. It's supposed to be big," Katy said, gesturing helplessly. "It's supposed to be insightful and layered and revealing, and I can't even answer the first question." Her mother tilted her head slightly. "Who'd you pick?" Katy hesitated for a fraction of a second before answering. "Dad." For a brief moment, something flickered across her mother's face. Not surprise, exactly, but something softer, thoughtful. "That's a good choice," she said finally. "That's what I thought," Katy replied, "until I realized I have no idea what to write." Her mother's lips curved into a knowing smile. "Oh, I doubt that." "No, seriously," Katy insisted, spinning back toward the desk. "What does he even like? Outside of, existing for us?" Her mother laughed softly, stepping further into the room. "Katy, I'm serious," Katy said, turning back again. "What's his favorite hobby? What are his dreams? What did he want before us?" Her voice faltered slightly on the last word, as if she hadn't meant to say it quite like that. Her mother studied her for a moment, then crossed the room and sat on the edge of the bed. "You've never asked him?" Katy opened her mouth, then closed it again. The answer was obvious. No, she hadn't. "I guess I just assumed I knew," she admitted. Her mother nodded, as if that made perfect sense. "That's the thing about people we love," she said gently. "We think we see all of them because they're always there. But sometimes, we only see the parts that touch us." Katy frowned slightly. "That sounds like something Professor Leland would say." "Maybe your professor is wiser than you give him credit for," her mother teased. Katy rolled her eyes, but a small smile tugged at her lips. "So are you going to help me? Or just philosophize while I fail this assignment?" Her mother chuckled, then leaned back slightly, her expression shifting from playful to reflective. You really don't know much about your father before we met, do you? Katy shook her head. Not really. He never talks about it. A quiet pause settled between them. Then her mother stood and walked toward the hallway. Wait here, she said. Katy blinked. That sounds ominous. It's not ominous, her mother called back, already halfway down the stairs. It's educational. Left alone. Katy glanced back at her laptop, the blinking cursor somehow more expectant than before. A few minutes later, her mother returned carrying a worn, leather-bound photo album. Katy straightened in her chair. Please tell me that's not filled with embarrassing baby pictures of me. Her mother smiled knowingly. Oh, those exist. But this isn't about you. She set the album down on the bed and motioned for Katy to join her. With a mix of curiosity and apprehension, Katy scooted over and opened it. The first page made her breath catch. There, in a neatly pressed uniform, stood a man she recognized and didn't recognize all at once. Her father. Younger. Sharper. His posture rigid, his expression composed. But there was something different in his eyes. Something intense. Focused. Wait, Katy said slowly, her gaze darting between the photo and her mother. That's your dad, her mother confirmed, her voice warm with quiet pride. He was in the military? Her mother laughed softly. Not just the military. He was a Marine. Katy stared at the photograph, her mind scrambling to reconcile the image of the calm, reserved man downstairs with the one standing before her in uniform. That's not possible, she said weakly. Oh, it's very possible, her mother replied, turning the page. More photos followed, training exercises, group shots, glimpses of a life Katy had never imagined her father living. Her mother's expression softened as she traced a finger over one of the images. He doesn't talk about it much, she said. He never liked drawing attention to himself. Katy shook her head, still stunned. This is insane. I had no idea. None. Her mother glanced at her, a small, knowing smile playing on her lips. There's a lot you don't know about your father. Katy looked back down at the album, her curiosity igniting into something sharper, more urgent. For the first time, the assignment didn't feel overwhelming. Felt like a mystery, and she had no choice but to solve it. Chapter 2. The first interview. Katy did not sleep well that night. Not for lack of trying. She turned off her light at a reasonable hour, closed her eyes, and even attempted one of those breathing exercises she'd read about, but her mind refused to settle. Every time she drifted close to sleep, an image of her father in crisp Marine uniform surfaced, dragging her right back to awareness. Her father. A Marine. It didn't fit. Not with the man who quietly rinsed dishes in the kitchen after dinner, who never raised his voice, who seemed almost allergic to being the center of attention. There was nothing about him that suggested intensity or sharp edges or command. And yet, the photographs didn't lie. By morning, she was awake before her alarm, staring at the ceiling while sunlight crept through her curtains. Her brain had already moved past shock and planted itself firmly in determination. If she didn't know her own father, she was going to change that. Today, she pulled herself out of bed, grabbed her notebook, and hesitated for only a moment before heading downstairs. The house smelled faintly of coffee, a comforting, familiar scent, and something else, something warm and buttery. Breakfast, of course. Katy stepped into the kitchen and paused just inside the doorway. Her father stood at the stove, flipping pancakes with an ease that suggested years of practice. He moved with deliberate efficiency. Nothing wasted, no unnecessary motion. It was something she'd seen her whole life, but now it looked different, sharper, intentional in a way she'd never thought to examine. Morning, kiddo, he said without turning around. Katy blinked. How did you know it was me? He glanced over his shoulder briefly, one eyebrow raised. You're the only one who hesitates in the doorway like you're about to interrogate the room. Katy opened her mouth, then closed it again. That's unfairly accurate. Her father's lips curved slightly. One of those small, almost private smiles that never lingered long. Comes with experience. She lingered for a moment longer, watching him, before stepping further into the kitchen. Sleep okay? He asked, flipping another pancake. Not really, she admitted. That project of yours? Katy sighed. Yeah. He nodded as if that explained everything. Coffee? Yes, please. He gestured toward the pot on the counter, and she poured herself a cup, leaning against the opposite counter while she watched him work. The silence wasn't uncomfortable, it never was with him, but today it felt charged. Like she was standing on the edge of something she didn't quite know how to approach. Finally, she took a breath. So, she began, trying for casual and missing it entirely. I picked you. Her father didn't react immediately. He finished flipping the last pancake, turned off the stove, and set the spatula aside before responding. For the project? Yeah. He turned then, leaning lightly against the counter, arms crossing loosely over his chest. Why me? The question wasn't defensive. It wasn't even particularly curious. It was neutral. Katy frowned slightly. Because you're my dad? He gave a small, almost amused exhale. That's not an explanation. That's a category. Katy blinked again. Are you always this difficult in interviews? She asked. Only when the questions are vague, he replied. For a split second, she just stared at him. Then, unexpectedly, she laughed. Okay, she said, straightening. Fair point. Let me try again. She grabbed her notebook, flipping it open with renewed focus. I picked you because… She hesitated, searching for something more honest than the surface answer. Because I realized I don't actually know you. The words hung in the air between them. Her father's expression didn't change dramatically, but something softened in his eyes. Something she couldn't quite name. That's a bold admission, he said. Yeah, well, she replied, shrugging lightly. It's also true. He studied her for a moment, then nodded once. All right, Katy blinked. All right, you can interview me, he clarified. If that's what you need. That's what I need, she said quickly, then paused. And what I want. Another flicker of that quiet smile. Then let's do it right. He gestured toward the kitchen table. Katy sat, flipping to a fresh page, while he brought over a plate of pancakes and set it between them. Fuel for the investigator, he said. Bribery noted, she replied, picking up her pen. He sat across from her, posture relaxed but attentive. And suddenly, despite all her determination, Katy felt a flicker of nerves. This wasn't just a conversation. It was an excavation. Okay, she said, exhaling slowly. Let's start simple. He nodded. What's your favorite hobby? For a moment, he didn't answer. Katy watched him carefully, pen poised. Then he asked, what do you think it is? She frowned. I'm the one asking questions here. Humor me, he said. Katy hesitated, then shrugged. I don't know. Fixing things? Watching the news? Quietly existing. One corner of his mouth twitched. Quietly existing is not a hobby, he said. Then you understand my problem, she shot back. He considered her for a moment longer, then answered. I used to build things. Used to? She echoed, pen already moving. Before you were born, he clarified. Furniture, mostly. Nothing fancy. Just solid pieces. Katy's pen stilled. You built furniture? He shrugged. It was something to focus on. Why did you stop? Another pause. Time changed, he said simply. Katy frowned. That's vague. It's accurate. She leaned back slightly, studying him. You're doing that thing. What thing? The one where you answer without actually answering. His expression didn't change, but there was the faintest hint of amusement in his eyes. Maybe you need to ask better questions. Katy narrowed her eyes. You're enjoying this. A little. She shook her head, but a smile tugged at her lips. Fine. I can adapt. She flipped her page, scanning the next question. What were your dreams for your life? She asked. This time, the pause lasted longer. Katy watched closely, noting the subtle shift in his posture, the way his shoulders relaxed, but his gaze drifted slightly, as if looking somewhere beyond the room. I wanted a lot of things, he said finally. Like what? He met her eyes again. Structure, purpose, something that mattered. That's not very specific, she pressed. It was to me. Katy tapped her pen lightly against the paper, thinking. Did you find it? She asked. For the first time, his answer came without hesitation. Yes. The certainty in his voice made her stomach tighten slightly. What was it? She asked quietly. He glanced toward the hallway, where her mother's laughter drifted faintly from another room. Then he looked back at Katy. Your family, he said. The simplicity of the answer hit harder than she expected. Katy swallowed, suddenly unsure what to write. That's convenient, she said, aiming for lightness and not quite reaching it. It's true, he replied. She nodded slowly, scribbling something down, though her mind was already racing ahead. This was going to be more complicated than she thought. All right, she said, forcing herself back into focus. Next question. He leaned back slightly, waiting. She glanced at her notes, then back up at him. Why did you become a Marine? The shift was immediate. Not dramatic, not obvious, but unmistakable. His expression stilled, the faint ease from earlier tightening into something more guarded. Katy felt it like a change in air pressure. I found out last night, she added quickly. From Mom. He nodded once, unsurprised. She probably showed you the pictures, he said. She did, Katy confirmed. So, why? He was quiet for a long moment. Katy didn't interrupt this time. She just watched. Finally, he exhaled softly. Because I needed direction, he said. That's it. That's enough. Katy frowned. For joining the Marines? That feels like a lot more than that. It was, he said. But sometimes the simple answer is the honest one. She studied him again, searching for cracks, for something beneath the surface. He met her gaze steadily. And for the first time, she understood something important. This wasn't going to be easy. He wasn't hiding from her. But he wasn't going to hand her anything either. Katy closed her notebook slowly, a small smile forming despite herself. Okay, she said. I see how this is going to go. How's that? He asked. You're a puzzle, she replied. And I'm going to figure you out. A flicker of something, approval maybe, crossed his expression. I look forward to seeing you try. Katy leaned back in her chair, her curiosity now fully ignited. This wasn't just a project anymore. It was a challenge. And she had every intention of winning. Chapter 3. The missing years. Katy did not mean to start eavesdropping. She told herself that as she stood halfway down the hallway later that afternoon, her notebook clutched loosely in her hand, her father's earlier answers still echoing in her mind. She had intended to go outside, maybe take a walk, clear her head. Instead, she found herself pausing when she heard her parents' voices drifting from the living room. Not arguing. Nothing dramatic. Just talking. You told her? Her father asked, his tone calm but measured. She was going to find out eventually, her mother replied. Katy leaned slightly toward the wall, guilt prickling faintly but not enough to make her leave. She's asking questions now, her mother continued. Real ones. A brief silence followed. That's good, her father said. And you're going to give her real answers? Another pause. I'll give her what she's ready for, he said. Katy frowned. What does that even mean? Her mother sighed softly. She's not a kid anymore. I know that. Then stop treating her like one. The conversation ended there, or at least it shifted into something quieter that Katy couldn't make out anymore. She straightened, her thoughts spinning. What she's ready for. That wasn't an answer. That was a barrier. And Katy had never been particularly good at respecting barriers when there was a story on the other side. By evening, she'd made a plan. If her father wasn't going to hand her answers directly, then she would do what any good journalist would do. Find alternate sources. Which is how she found herself perched cross-legged at the foot of her parents' bed. The photo album open in front of her once again, while her mother folded laundry with unhurried precision. You're circling, her mother observed without looking up. What? You've looked at the same 3 pages 5 times. Katy glanced down at the album. It was true. Photos of her father in uniform, in groups, alone, always composed, always controlled. Okay, Katy admitted, blowing out a breath. He's not telling me everything. Her mother raised an eyebrow. I'm shocked. I'm serious, Katy said, sitting up straighter. It's like he's answering questions, but only halfway. That sounds like him. That's not helpful, Katy muttered. Her mother smiled faintly but didn't respond immediately. Katy hesitated, then leaned forward. You said he doesn't like attention, she began. But this, she gestured to the album. This isn't just no attention. This is disappearing. Her mother paused, a shirt held mid-fold. That's an interesting way to put it, she said. Am I wrong? Her mother finished folding the shirt before answering. No, she said quietly. You're not wrong. Katy's pen moved instinctively across her notebook, capturing the phrasing. So what happened? She pressed. Between this and now? Her mother sat down beside her, the mattress dipping slightly. Life happened, she said gently. Katy gave her a look. You're doing it too. Doing what? Answering without answering. Her mother laughed softly. Maybe you get that from your father. I refuse to accept that, Katy said. I'm much more direct. Katy nudged her lightly. Mom. Her mother's smile faded into something more reflective. You want to understand your father, she said. That's a good thing. But you have to understand something first. What? He's not hiding things because he doesn't trust you, she said. He's protecting parts of himself that were built in a very different life. Katy frowned. The Marine part? In part, her mother said. That's not an answer either, Katy pointed out. Her mother sighed, but there was affection in it. Your father didn't have an easy life before he met me, she said. Katy stilled slightly. What does that mean? It means he learned very early how to be self-contained, her mother explained. Independent, focused. He didn't rely on people the way most of us do. And then he joined the Marines, Katy said slowly. Her mother nodded, which reinforced all of that. Discipline, control, responsibility. Katy tapped her pen thoughtfully. And then what? She asked. Her mother's expression softened, her gaze drifting toward the window as if looking back through time. Then he met me, she said simply. Katy huffed. That feels suspiciously like the highlight reel version. Her mother laughed. It is. I want the full version. Of course you do, her mother said, nudging her shoulder gently. You're a journalist. Katy grinned briefly. The best, eventually. Her mother regarded her for a moment, then reached over and turned a few pages in the album. You're asking the wrong question, she said. Katy frowned. I don't think I am. You are, her mother said. You're asking what changed him. But that's not quite right. Then what should I be asking? Her mother tapped a photo lightly. Ask what didn't change. Katy looked down. The photo showed her father sitting on what looked like a low wall, sleeves rolled up, a faint, rare smile touching his face. It wasn't directed at the camera. It was candid, almost unguarded. What am I looking for? Katy asked. Her mother's voice softened. Your father has always been the same man at his core, she said. The difference is Who he allows to see which parts of him. Katy's grip tightened slightly on her pen. So he just decided to show you everything? She asked. A smile curved her mother's lips, warm, certain, and unapologetically fond. Not at first, she said. He was infuriating. Katy's head snapped up. Excuse me? Oh, absolutely. Her mother continued, clearly enjoying herself now. Quiet, closed off, impossible to read. Half the time I couldn't tell if he even liked me. Katy stared at her. That is not helping my understanding. It should, her mother said, amused. You think he's boring because he's quiet. I thought the same thing at first. I never said boring, Katy protested, then immediately winced. Okay, I thought it. Her mother laughed. And, her mother continued, her tone shifting slightly. I learned very quickly that your father was anything but boring. Katy leaned in, fully engaged now. How? Her mother met her gaze. Because every once in a while, she said, he would say something so thoughtful, so precise, or do something so unexpectedly kind, that it made everything else fade into the background. Katy blinked. That's annoyingly vague. It's also true, her mother said. Katy groaned softly. You're both impossible, she declared. How am I supposed to write a biography when no one will give me actual information? Her mother reached over and tapped her notebook. You already have information, she said. You just don't trust it yet. Katy frowned. I trust information. You trust facts, her mother corrected. There's a difference. Katy crossed her arms slightly. That sounds like something you made up to win this argument. Maybe, her mother said lightly. Or maybe you need to spend less time asking questions and more time observing. Katy hesitated. Observing. It was such a fundamental part of what she loved. Watching people, noticing details, piecing together patterns. And yet, when it came to her father, she'd skipped straight to interrogation. Maybe that was the problem. She glanced down at the album again, then back at her mother. So you're saying I should what? Follow him around. Her mother's eyes sparkled with mischief. I'm saying, she said carefully, that your father has routines, habits, little things he does that you've probably never noticed. Katy's curiosity sharpened immediately. Like what? But her mother simply stood, gathering the folded laundry. That, she said over her shoulder as she headed for the door. You're going to have to figure out on your own. Katy stared after her. That's not helpful, she called. It's very helpful, her mother replied from down the hall. Katy looked back at the photo album, then slowly closed it. A new plan was already forming. If her father wasn't going to tell her who he was, she would watch him. And this time, she wouldn't miss anything. Chapter 4. Patterns in Silence. Katy discovered very quickly that observing her father was far more difficult than it sounded. It wasn't that he did nothing, quite the opposite. He was always doing something. But everything he did was so efficient, so seamless, that it blended into the background of daily life. If you weren't actively looking, he simply disappeared into the rhythm of the house. And for 22 years, Katy realized grimly, she had not been actively looking. That changed on Thursday morning. She woke earlier than usual, notebook in hand, determination sharpening her focus. If her father had routines, she was going to map them. If he had habits, she was going to catalog them. She slipped downstairs quietly and immediately stopped. Her father was already awake. Of course he was. He stood at the kitchen counter, not cooking this time, but working with something small and metallic, his head slightly bowed in concentration. The morning light streamed through the windows, catching in the fine movements of his hands. Katy lingered in the doorway again, resisting the urge to announce herself. Observe first. He wasn't wearing his usual weekday clothes yet, just a plain t-shirt and jeans, but the posture was the same. Straight, controlled, nothing wasted. On the counter lay a small collection of tools, each placed with deliberate spacing. Katy stepped closer, her curiosity pulling her in before she could overthink it. What is that? She asked. He didn't startle. He never startled. A hinge, he said, glancing up briefly. From the cabinet in the hallway. Katy blinked. The one that squeaks? It did, he corrected, tightening something with precise pressure. Not anymore. She leaned against the counter, watching him. You're fixing it at 6 in the morning? It was bothering your mother, he said simply. Katy tilted her head. That tracked. He finished the adjustment, tested the hinge with a quiet open and close motion, then nodded once, satisfied. Done, he said. That's it, Katy asked. Just fixed. He gave her a small look. That's generally how fixing things works. Katy snorted. You know what I mean. I do, he said, wiping his hands clean. And yes, that's it. He started gathering the tools, each one returned to a small box in the same careful order. Katy watched closely. You always put things away like that, she said. Like what? In the exact same place, she replied. Same order. He shrugged lightly. Makes them easier to find next time. That feels like an understatement, she said. He glanced at her again, a flicker of something amused in his expression. You're studying me now, he observed. Yes, she said immediately. I am. He considered that for a moment. Notice anything interesting? Katy hesitated. This was new. He was inviting it. Yeah, she said slowly. You don't waste motion. He raised an eyebrow slightly. Go on. You move like everything is planned before you do it, she continued, her voice gaining confidence. Like you've already thought 3 steps ahead. He didn't answer right away, but he didn't deflect either. That's something the Marines taught you? She asked. Partly, he said. Partly something I learned before that. Katy's pen appeared almost instantly. Before that how? He gave a small breath through his nose, almost a laugh. You're persistent. I'm thorough, she corrected. He said. She waited. For a moment it seemed like he might sidestep the question again. But then he leaned back slightly against the counter, folding his arms loosely. When you don't have much, he said, you learn to use what you do have carefully. Katy's pen stilled. That sounds like a clue, she said. It is, he replied. That's frustratingly vague again, she added. That's because you're still asking broad questions. Katy crossed her arms, mirroring him without realizing it. Then what's the specific question I should be asking? A faint smile touched his lips. Why do you think I don't waste motion? Katy frowned, thinking. Because you were trained not to? She guessed. Partly, he repeated. Because it's efficient. Yes. Because you had to be? She added, less certain. There. That was it. Something in his expression shifted, subtle, but unmistakable. Katy leaned forward slightly, catching it. Had to? She pressed. He studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded once. Yes, he said. Katy's heart picked up just a little. Why? Another pause. But this one felt different. Not avoidance. Consideration. You ever notice, he said slowly, how people who grow up with certainty move differently than people who don't? Katy blinked. No, she admitted. He nodded. Certainty makes people relaxed, unhurried. They assume things will be there when they need them. And uncertainty? She asked quietly. It teaches you to prepare, he said. To anticipate. To make sure you don't need to ask twice for something you might not get once. Katy felt something tighten in her chest. That's not about the Marines, she said softly. No, he agreed. They stood in silence for a moment. Katy looked down at her notebook, realizing she hadn't written a single word of that exchange. Felt too important to reduce immediately. Why didn't you ever tell me that? She asked. He tilted his head slightly. You never asked. That answer, simple, direct, hit harder than she expected. I didn't know to ask, she said. That's part of learning, he replied. Katy studied him, something new forming alongside her curiosity. Respect. Not the automatic kind that came from being her father. Something earned. You're very frustrating, she informed him. I've been told, he said mildly. She narrowed her eyes. By Mom. A hint of amusement flickered again. Primarily. Katy smiled despite herself, then glanced down at her notebook. Okay, she said. New approach. He watched her, curious. I'm not just asking questions anymore, she explained. I'm tracking patterns. And what have you found so far? He asked. She tapped her pen against the paper. You wake up early, she said. You fix things before anyone notices they're broken. You move like every action has a purpose. And you answer questions like they're negotiation tactics. He raised an eyebrow. Negotiation tactics? You never give the whole answer at once, she clarified. You wait to see if I can get there. He considered that. Then, unexpectedly, that's fair, he said. Katy blinked. Wait, really? He nodded. You'll understand something better if you work for it. She stared at him, then let out a short laugh. You're turning my journalism project into a training exercise. Seems effective so far, he replied. Katy shook her head, amused but also slightly exasperated. Most dads would just answer the questions. Most daughters wouldn't care enough to ask them properly, he said. The words landed gently, but they lingered. Katy's expression softened. Okay, she said quietly. That's annoyingly meaningful. He didn't respond, but the look in his eyes was warmer than before. She glanced down at her notebook again, then back up at him. One more question, she said. He nodded. What do you do when no one's looking? The question hung there, unexpected even to her. Her father's expression didn't shift dramatically, but something deeper settled in it. Then he said very simply, you're going to have to find that out the old-fashioned way. Katy tilted her head. And what's that? He picked up his coffee, taking a slow sip before answering. By paying attention when you think it doesn't matter. Katy smiled slowly. Challenge accepted. Chapter 5. The unseen routine. It began before sunrise. Katy wouldn't have known that if she hadn't deliberately set her alarm for an hour earlier than usual. And even then, she nearly missed it. The house was still, wrapped in that soft, pre-dawn quiet where everything felt slightly suspended. For a moment, she wondered if she had imagined her father having early routines at all. Then she heard the front door open. Katy sat up immediately, her pulse quickening with a mix of excitement and validation. Got you. She slipped out of bed, grabbed her notebook, and crept toward the window. Her father crossed the front yard with steady, unhurried steps, a worn jacket thrown over his shoulders. No phone in his hand. No coffee. Nothing to distract him. He didn't hesitate. He just kept walking. Katy stared after him, her curiosity flaring into something sharper. Where are you going? She whispered to herself. The answer came quickly. You're going to find out. By the time she reached the sidewalk, he was already halfway down the block. She jogged a little to catch up, but slowed quickly, keeping her distance. This wasn't an interview. This was observation. He didn't look back. Not once. He walked with the same deliberate focus she had noticed in the kitchen, each step measured but not rigid. There was no wasted energy, no distraction. Just forward momentum. Katy followed, her notebook tucked under her arm, trying not to feel ridiculous. This is not stalking, she muttered under her breath. This is investigative reporting. Her father turned the corner. Katy paused briefly, then followed. The neighborhood thinned gradually as they moved further from the house, giving way to quieter streets and eventually a small public park. It wasn't anything remarkable, just a stretch of grass, a few trees, a walking path, but at this hour, it felt almost private. Her father stepped onto the path without hesitation. Katy lingered at the entrance for a second, then trailed him again, still keeping that careful distance. He didn't walk quickly. He didn't need to. There was something steady about his pace, intentional, almost rhythmical, like he wasn't trying to get somewhere, but rather maintain something. Katy slowed her own steps, matching the cadence unconsciously. For a few minutes, that was all that happened. Walking, silence, no phone, no fidgeting, no visible distraction. Katy frowned slightly, jotting down a few notes as she moved. Routine early morning walks. No devices, purpose unclear. But even as she wrote it, she knew that wasn't the real observation. The real observation was harder to define. He looked at ease, not in a relaxed, lounging way, not careless, grounded. That was the word. As if this quiet, simple act was something he relied on. After one full loop around the path, something changed. He stopped. Katy froze instinctively, stepping back behind a tree more out of reflex than necessity. Her father stepped off the path and onto a small clearing of grass. Then, without hesitation, he began to stretch. Katy blinked. It wasn't unusual, people stretched all the time. But there was something about the way he did it that made her lean forward slightly, studying him more closely. Every movement was precise, controlled, not rushed, not casual, intentional. Like someone who understood exactly what their body could do and exactly how to maintain it. Her pen hovered over the page again. Training? Habit from service? But then he shifted stances, and Katy's understanding fractured, because what followed was not stretching. At least not entirely. His movements flowed into something more structured, subtle weight shifts, controlled motions of his arms, measured breathing. It wasn't aggressive, wasn't flashy, but there was an unmistakable discipline to it. Katy stared, her breath catching. It looked like practice, not exercise. Practice. For what, she wasn't entirely sure, but it wasn't random. What am I looking at? Her father moved through the sequence without pause, his focus absolute. There was no audience, no performance, just repetition and control. Something about it made her chest tighten slightly. This wasn't the man who quietly fixed hinges and made pancakes. Or maybe it was, and she had just never seen this part before. After several minutes, he stopped. No flourish, no sign of effort, just stillness. Then he returned to the path and resumed walking as if nothing had happened. Katy stood there a moment longer, her notebook forgotten in her hand. What else have I missed? She didn't follow him all the way home. Not because she couldn't, but because she needed to think. Instead, she took a different route, circling back toward their house while her mind raced ahead of her. By the time she walked through the front door, her father was already there. Of course he was. He stood in the kitchen again, this time pouring himself a cup of coffee as if the morning had only just begun. He glanced up as she entered. "And where did you go this morning?" he asked mildly. Katy stopped mid-step. "Out," she said. He nodded, as if that answer confirmed something for him. "Interesting timing," he added. Katy narrowed her eyes slightly. "You knew I was following you." It wasn't a question. His faint smile gave her the answer anyway. "You weren't subtle." Katy dropped her notebook onto the counter. "You didn't say anything. You were observing," he replied. "Didn't want to interfere." Katy stared at him for a second, then huffed. "That feels like a trap." "It's a lesson," he corrected. She crossed her arms. "Fine," she said. "Then I guess I learned something." "Did you?" Katy stepped closer, searching his face. "You go for walks every morning," she began. "Before anyone's awake." "Yes." "You don't take your phone." "No." "You move like it's not just a walk, like it matters." His expression didn't change, but his eyes sharpened slightly. "Go on." "And you practice something," she said. There it was. The moment. Something quiet and guarded settled into his posture again. Not closing off entirely, but Measuring. What did it look like? He asked. Katy blinked. That's your question? It's an important one. She thought about it. Controlled, she said slowly. Deliberate. Like muscle memory. Like you've done it 1,000 times. He nodded once. That's accurate. So what is it? She pressed. Pause. Then, discipline, he said. Katy exhaled sharply. That's not an answer. It is, he replied calmly. No, it's not, she insisted. It's a concept. I want the actual answer. He studied her for a moment, then set his coffee down. Why do you think I do it? He asked. Katy frowned, thinking. To stay in shape? Partly. To maintain routine? Yes. To? She hesitated. Hold on to something. That did it. Not a big reaction, but enough. A flicker. A recognition. Her father nodded slowly. Yes, he said. Katy's chest tightened again. What? She asked quietly. He held her gaze, his expression steady. Parts of your life don't disappear just because your circumstances change, he said. Some things stay with you, for better or worse. Katy swallowed. That's about more than exercise, she said. Yes. Silence settled between them. Then she reached for her notebook again. Her voice softer now. You said yesterday that I should pay attention when it doesn't seem like it matters, she said. He nodded. I thought this didn't matter, she admitted. And now? He asked. Katy met his eyes. Now I think it might matter more than anything else I've asked. Something in his expression shifted. Not surprise exactly. Approval. Then you're getting better at this, he said. Katy felt a small, unexpected smile form. Don't sound too impressed. I'm not, he said lightly. You've got a long way to go. She rolled her eyes, but there was no frustration in it. Only momentum, because for the first time she wasn't just asking questions. She was starting to understand what the answers meant. Chapter 6. The Man Before. Katy adjusted the recorder on the kitchen table for the third time. It wasn't strictly necessary. She had already tested the audio, checked the batteries, and confirmed the positioning. But the act of adjusting it gave her hands something to do, because this interview felt different. Up until now, she had been discovering things by accident, by observation, by nudging answers out of her father piece by piece. But today she had asked directly. For the first time, she had set a time. A real interview. And surprisingly, he had agreed. Relax, her father said calmly from across the table. Katy looked up. I am relaxed. You've adjusted that recorder 3 times, he pointed out. That's because audio quality matters, she replied. She narrowed her eyes. Don't me. This is serious. I know, he said. That's why I said relax. Katy let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding and leaned back slightly in her chair. Okay, she said. Fine. I'm relaxed. You're not, he replied mildly. Don't ruin the illusion. A faint smile flickered across his face, then faded as he leaned forward slightly. You're ready when you are, he said. Katy nodded, flipping open her notebook. This wasn't just about hobbies or routines anymore. This was about before. She clicked the recorder on. Interview with Daniel Ryce, she said, her voice taking on a more formal cadence. Subject is my father. That's a strange way to start, he interrupted. She glared at him. Don't critique the process. I'm helping, he said. You're interfering, she corrected. Please let me do my job. He held up one hand slightly in mock surrender. Proceed. Katy took another breath. Okay, she said, settling into focus. Let's start with early life. Where did you grow up? There was no hesitation this time. Mostly in Arizona, he said. Mostly? She picked up quickly. We moved, he clarified. A few times. Why? He paused. Not long, but enough to remind her this wasn't going to be effortless. Circumstances, he said. Katy sighed. You're doing it again. I'm answering honestly, he replied. Technically, yes, she said. Practically? Not helpful. He studied her for a moment. What do you want to know? He asked. The shift caught her slightly off guard. He wasn't deflecting, he was redirecting. Katy leaned forward, her voice quieter now. What was it like? She asked. That seemed to land differently. He sat back slightly, his gaze settling somewhere past her shoulder, like he was pulling something forward from a long distance. Busy, he said at first. Unpredictable. Katy waited. You learn quickly when things don't stay consistent, he continued. Where things are, what matters, what doesn't. Was it just you? She asked. Or family? Family, he said. But not stable. The word hung in the air. Katy's pen slowed. Can you explain that? She asked gently. He ran a hand over the table, almost absently. There was always something changing, he said. Jobs, houses, priorities. Did you have friends? She asked. A few, he said. Nothing long-term. Because you moved. Yes. Katy nodded slowly, her earlier observations starting to align in her mind. Uncertainty, preparation, self-contained. It wasn't just personality. It was learned. So you got used to not depending on things lasting, she said. He looked at her, and for the first time, there was something distinctly approving in his expression. That's a fair assessment, he said. Katy exhaled softly, writing quickly. Was that why you joined the Marines? She asked. No, he said. She blinked. No, no, he repeated. That was separate. Katy frowned slightly. How? He leaned back again, folding his arms loosely. You're trying to draw a straight line from point A to point B, he said. Life isn't usually that clean. Sometimes it is, she argued. Sometimes, he agreed. Not here. Katy tapped her pen, thinking. Then what led to it? She asked. This time, the pause stretched longer. Katy stayed quiet, resisting the urge to fill it. Finally, he spoke. I needed structure, he said. Not just routine, something stronger. Something that didn't shift. Because everything else did, she said. Yes. Katy leaned forward again. And the Marines gave you that? They gave me a framework, he said. Expectations, consequences, clear lines. That sounds intense, she said. It was, he replied simply. Katy hesitated. Was it hard? She asked. He gave a small, almost amused exhale. Yes. That's all you're giving me? She pressed. It was hard, he repeated. Katy rolled her eyes slightly, but there was no irritation in it anymore. Okay. Let me try differently, she said. What was the hardest part? That question seemed to settle differently. Not broader, sharper. Her father considered it more carefully this time. Letting go of control, he said. Katy blinked. That's not what I expected. What did you expect? Physical difficulty, training, discipline, she said. That was all part of it, he agreed. But the hardest part was learning when to follow instead of anticipate. She frowned. You mean trusting others? Yes. Katy sat back slightly, processing. You weren't used to that, she said. No. And you had to learn it. Yes. There was a quiet weight to the answer. Katy wrote it down slowly. And did you? She asked. Another pause. Then, yes, he said. Katy met his eyes. That explains something, she murmured. What? He prompted. You don't control everything now, she said. Even though you could probably try. The faintest hint of humor returned. I could try, he agreed. But you don't, she said. No. Why? He tilted his head slightly. Because I don't need to anymore, he said. The simplicity of it struck her again, the same way his earlier answers had. Everything he said sounded simple, but none of it was. Katy glanced down at her notes, then back up at him. When did that change? She asked. When I met your mother, he said. This time there was no deflection, no hesitation, just certainty. Katy couldn't help the small smile that formed. She says you were impossible. He let out a quiet chuckle. That's accurate. You didn't let her in at first? Katy asked. No. Why? Didn't see the point, he said. Katy stared at him. Wow, that's harsh. It was honest, he replied. And then, he looked down briefly, a subtle shift in his posture. And then she didn't leave, he said. Katy's pen froze mid-sentence. That's it? She asked softly. That's it, he said. She shook her head slowly, almost laughing. That's a terrible explanation. It's the right one, he said. Katy studied him, something warm building alongside her curiosity now. Understanding. You just decided? She pressed. No, he said. I noticed. Noticed what? He met her gaze again. That she saw me clearly, he said, and wasn't bothered by it. Katy's chest tightened slightly. And that mattered. Yes. Silence settled between them for a moment. Then Katy leaned back, closing her notebook halfway. You know, she said, this is starting to sound less like a biography and more like a mystery novel. That's your influence, he said. She smiled faintly. No, she said. That's you. He didn't respond, but he didn't dismiss it either. Katy reached over and turned off the recorder, then rested her hands on the table. One more question, she said. He nodded. When Mom looks at you, she said, her voice softer now, she looks like you hung the moon. He raised an eyebrow slightly. That's a vivid description. It's accurate, she insisted. Why? He was quiet for a moment. Not guarded, just thoughtful. Then he said, because she sees the parts of me that I don't show anyone else. Katy held his gaze. And now? She asked. Now what? Am I starting to see them? She asked. The question felt bigger than she intended. But she didn't take it back. Her father studied her for a long moment. Then slowly, yes, he said. Katy felt something shift into place. Not a conclusion. Not yet. But a direction. And for the first time, she realized. She wasn't just uncovering who her father had been. She was learning who he still was. Chapter 7. The Measure of a Man. Katy didn't realize when the project stopped feeling like an assignment. It wasn't a single moment. There was no clear dividing line where journalism seminar ended and something more personal took its place. It happened gradually, through quiet observations, incomplete answers, and the steady unraveling of a man she thought she already understood. By Friday afternoon, her notebook was full, not just of facts but of impressions, patterns, questions that led to other questions instead of conclusions, and one very inconvenient realization. She still didn't fully understand why her mother looked at her father the way she did. She had pieces now: history, discipline, restraint, but not the answer to the question that had started all of this. What did her mother see? Katy sat cross-legged on her bedroom floor, flipping through her notes. Uncertainty in childhood, self-reliance, marine structure, control and discipline, morning routines, continuity, answers equals layered, intentional. She tapped her pen against the page. That's all great, she muttered. But it doesn't explain that. She closed the notebook with a soft thud. There was only one person left to ask. Her mother was in the backyard, tending to the small garden she insisted on maintaining despite claiming every year that it was too much work. Katy stepped outside, the late afternoon breeze carrying the faint scent of soil and sun-warmed leaves. Her mother glanced up with a smile. You look like you've come to interrogate me again. I don't interrogate, Katy said. I investigate. Ah yes, much less intimidating. Katy dropped onto the chair beside her, folding one leg underneath herself. I have a problem, she said. Her mother raised an eyebrow. Only one. Very funny. Her mother chuckled softly, brushing dirt from her hands before turning to face her more fully. What's the issue? Katy hesitated, then leaned forward. I understand him, she said slowly. Or I'm starting to. That's good, her mother said. But I don't understand you, Katy added. That earned her a look. Me? Yes, Katy said. Specifically, why you love him the way you do. Her mother blinked once, clearly not expecting that. That's a big question. I know, Katy said. That's why I'm asking it last. Her mother smiled faintly at that. Katy pressed on. I've seen everything now, she said. The discipline, the routines, the way he thinks, the way he answers questions like he's testing me. He is testing you, her mother said. I know, Katy replied. But that's not it. That's not the thing. What thing? Katy gestured vaguely, searching for the right words. The thing where you look at him like he's more than what anyone else sees, she said. Like there's this whole other version of him that only you understand. Her mother was quiet for a moment. You're not wrong, she said. Katy leaned in. So what is it? She asked. What am I missing? Her mother tilted her head slightly, studying her. Let me ask you something first, she said. Katy groaned softly. You're both doing this now. Answer the question, her mother insisted gently. Katy sighed. Fine. What have you learned about your father so far? Her mother asked. Katy crossed her arms, thinking. He's precise, she said. Deliberate. He doesn't do anything without a reason. Her mother nodded. He doesn't waste effort or emotion, Katy continued. But when he does something, it means something. Good, her mother said. What else? Katy hesitated. He notices things, she said. More than he lets on. And, Katy looked up. He chooses when to act, she said. It's never random. Her mother's expression softened. There it is, she said. Katy frowned. There what is? That's what you're missing, her mother replied. That doesn't explain anything, Katy said. It explains everything, her mother countered. Katy stared at her, unimpressed. Please elaborate, she said dryly. Her mother laughed softly, then leaned back in her chair. Your father doesn't show everything he feels, she said. You've noticed that. Yes, but that doesn't mean he doesn't feel it, she continued. I know that, Katy said. Do you? Her mother asked. Katy hesitated. Her mother leaned forward slightly. Let me put it this way, she said. When your father does something for you, fixes something, remembers something, anticipates something, do you think that's accidental? Katy shook her head slowly. No, she admitted. It's not, her mother said. It's intentional. Always. Katy's mind flickered back to the hinge that had stopped squeaking before anyone else noticed. The morning walks, the quiet adjustments that seemed invisible until you were looking for them. He doesn't say things out loud, her mother continued. But he shows them. Constantly. Katy swallowed. That's subtle, she said. Her mother smiled. Exactly. That feels unfair, Katy muttered. Most people would just say what they feel. Most people didn't live the life your father did, her mother said gently. Katy leaned back, processing. So you're saying you see it because you know where to look, she said. Her mother shook her head slightly. No, she said. I see it because I stayed long enough to notice. Katy blinked. That's different. It is, her mother agreed. Silence settled between them for a moment. Then Katy tilted her head. So what was the moment? She asked. What moment? When you knew, Katy clarified. When you went from he's quiet and impossible to I'm going to marry this man. Her mother laughed, a warm, unguarded sound. You really are writing a romance story now. Accidentally, Katy said. Please answer the question. Her mother leaned back, her gaze drifting slightly as she thought. It wasn't one big moment, she said. That's not how it works with him. Of course it isn't, Katy muttered. But there was one thing, her mother added. Katy perked up instantly. Finally, her mother smiled knowingly. I had a terrible day, she said. Everything went wrong, work, family, everything. I didn't tell him about it. I didn't want to. Because he was still in the impossible phase, Katy guessed. Exactly, her mother said. Katy leaned forward. So what happened? Her mother's smile softened. I got home, she said, and he was already there. Katy blinked. That sounds normal. It wasn't, her mother said. He didn't usually come over unannounced back then. Katy's curiosity sharpened. Okay. I hadn't told him anything, her mother continued. But he walked in, took one look at me, and didn't ask questions. What did he do? Katy asked. Her mother met her eyes. He just started fixing things, she said. Katy frowned. Fixing things? The small things, her mother clarified. Dinner was already made. The dishes I hadn't gotten to were done. Something in the hallway that had been broken for weeks? Fixed. Katy's breath caught slightly. That sounds familiar, she said. Her mother smiled. It should. Katy sat back slowly. And he didn't say anything? She asked. No, her mother said. Not even are you okay? Her mother shook her head. No, she said. He didn't need to. Katy frowned, trying to follow. Okay. I'm missing something again. Her mother leaned forward slightly. He saw that I was overwhelmed, she said. So he removed as much of the pressure as he could, without making me talk about it before I was ready. Katy's chest tightened. That's a very specific, she said. It's very him, her mother replied. Katy stared at her. And that's when you knew? She asked. Her mother smiled softly. That's when I understood, she said. Understood what? That he wasn't quiet because he didn't care, her mother said. He was quiet because he was paying attention. Katy exhaled slowly. And once you knew where to look, she said. Everything was obvious, her mother finished. Katy sat there, the weight of that settling in. Every small act, every deliberate movement, not absence, choice. She stood suddenly, grabbing her notebook. Where are you going? Her mother asked. To test something, Katy said. Her mother smiled knowingly. Good, she said. Katy found her father in the garage. Of course she did. He stood at a workbench, focused on something small again. Wood this time carefully sanded and measured. He glanced up as she entered. Back to observing? He asked. Katy shook her head, stepping closer. No, she said. I think I finally have the right question. He raised an eyebrow. Let's hear it. Katy studied him, her expression steady. When you care about someone, she said, how do you decide what matters enough to act on? This time there was no deflection, no redirection, just a quiet moment of recognition. Then, you don't decide, he said. Katy frowned slightly. That doesn't make sense. He set the piece of wood down, turning fully toward her. It's already decided, he clarified. By what? She asked. He met her gaze, his voice calm but certain. By whether it affects them. Katy's breath caught. Not flashy, not grand, but precise. And suddenly she understood. Not all of it, but enough. And for the first time, the mystery didn't feel like something she needed to solve. It felt like something she was finally beginning to see. Chapter 8. The story she didn't expect. Katy finished the first draft in the quiet of her room, long after the house had settled into the soft creaks and distant hums of night. Her laptop screen cast a pale glow across her notebook, now filled to the edges with scribbled observations, arrows, and phrases circled 3 or 4 times, as if repetition might force clarity. But now those scattered fragments had become something else. Structured, deliberate, whole. Or at least, almost whole. She read through the final paragraph again, her brow furrowed. Subject demonstrates consistent behavioral patterns rooted in early life instability, reinforced through structured military experience. Displays high levels of intentionality in interpersonal interactions, prioritizing action over verbal expression. Katy grimaced. That sounds like I'm profiling a robot, she muttered. She leaned back, rubbing her face with both hands. Technically, it was correct. Everything she had written was true, precise even. It followed the structure her professor had outlined, checked every analytical box. And yet it felt wrong, flat, like she had described her father without actually capturing him. Her eyes drifted toward the hallway, where the faint light from downstairs still lingered. She hesitated for only a moment before standing. Her father was exactly where she expected him to be. The living room was dim, lit only by a single lamp beside him. He sat in his usual chair, a book resting closed in his lap, though he wasn't reading. He rarely read this late. He was thinking. Katy paused in the doorway, watching him. For once, she didn't feel the need to dissect the moment. She just noticed it. How's the project? He asked without looking up. Katy smiled slightly. You always know when I'm there. You're quieter now, he said. But not invisible. She stepped into the room, sitting on the edge of the couch. I finished it, she said. Good. It's not good, she corrected. That earned his attention. He looked up, studying her. What's wrong with it? Katy leaned forward, resting her elbows on her knees. It's accurate, she said. Technically. But it's missing something. He waited. She exhaled slowly. It doesn't feel like you, she admitted. A brief silence settled between them. Then he asked, what does feel like me mean? Katy let out a short breath, half laugh, half frustration. That's exactly the problem, she said. I don't know how to explain it. He tilted his head slightly. Try. Katy thought for a moment. I wrote about what you've done, she said. Where you've been, how you think, why you act the way you do. He nodded. But I didn't write about. She hesitated. Why it matters. To who? He asked. To anyone, she said. Then softer. To me. He leaned back slightly, considering her words. And why does it matter to you? He asked. Katy blinked. You're asking me now? You're the one writing it, he replied. Katy leaned back, crossing her arms as she thought. Why did it matter? At the start, it had been curiosity. A challenge. A mystery she wanted to solve. But now it felt different. It matters because... She began, then stopped. Because what? Because she had been wrong? Because she had missed who he was for years? Because the quiet things she used to overlook now felt essential? She looked down at her hands, then back up at him. It matters because you're not who I thought you were, she said. His expression didn't shift dramatically, but he listened. And that's a problem? He asked. No, she said quickly. It's... She shook her head. It's the opposite. He didn't interrupt. Katy leaned forward again, her voice steadier now. I thought you were steady because you didn't change, she said. Because you didn't want anything different. Because you were simple. One corner of his mouth twitched faintly at that. And now, he prompted. Now I think you're steady because you choose to be, she said. Silence followed. But it wasn't empty. Felt complete. Katy swallowed, her voice softening. You had reasons to be different, she continued. Reasons to be closed off, to stay detached, to not care as much. Those are options, he said. But you didn't pick them, she said. No. Why? She asked. This time, he didn't redirect the question. Because they don't build anything, he said. Katy blinked. What? Detachment. Avoidance. He shrugged lightly. They protect you in the short term. But they don't create anything worth keeping. Katy felt that settle into her chest. So you chose to build instead? Yes. Her eyes softened. Even when it wasn't easy. Especially then. They held each other's gaze for a moment. Then Katy let out a quiet breath, something in her finally aligning. I wrote about what you do, she said slowly. But I didn't write about why you do it. And now you know? He asked. I think I do, she said. She stood, her energy returning, but different now. More focused. Don't move, she said suddenly. He raised an eyebrow. I wasn't planning to. Good, she said, already heading back toward the stairs. 20 minutes later, she returned. Her laptop was tucked under her arm, determination clear in every step. I'm going to rewrite the ending, she said. He nodded once. Go ahead. She sat on the couch, opening the laptop and scrolling to the bottom of her document. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard for a moment. Then, she began. This biography began as an attempt to understand a man I thought I already knew. She read aloud as she typed, her voice steady. Her father didn't interrupt. I approached the subject with assumptions grounded in familiarity, but limited by perspective. Through observation, interviews, and analysis, it became clear that these assumptions were incomplete. She paused briefly, then continued. The subject is not defined by grand gestures or overt expression. Instead, his actions reveal a pattern of deliberate care, shaped by a life that required discipline, adaptability, and restraint. Her father's gaze remained steady, attentive. Katy's voice softened. What initially appeared as quiet simplicity is, in reality, a series of intentional choices. Each action, however small, is guided by an internal measure not immediately visible to those who are not looking for it. She glanced up briefly, then back to the screen. The most significant discovery was not in identifying what the subject does, but in understanding why it matters. His approach to relationships is rooted not in expression, but in attention, observing, anticipating, and acting in ways that reduce burden without requiring recognition. A small, almost disbelieving smile touched her lips as she kept going. This is not absence. It is precision. The room was very still now. Katy's fingers slowed as she reached the final lines. The subject once stated that action is determined not by preference, but by impact. What affects the people he cares about becomes the priority, without the need for recognition or acknowledgement. She closed her eyes briefly, then opened them again. This understanding reframes the subject entirely. What may appear understated or unnoticed is, in fact, deeply intentional. To observe it requires time, attention, and a willingness to look beyond what is obvious. She stopped typing, her voice barely above a whisper now. And once seen, she said, it becomes impossible to miss. The room fell into silence. Katy looked up slowly. Her father sat exactly where he had been before, but something in his expression had shifted. Not dramatically, not in a way anyone else might notice, but she did, because now she knew what to look for. That's better, he said quietly. Katy smiled. Yeah, she said. It is. She closed the laptop, setting it aside before leaning back against the couch. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then she tilted her head slightly. You know, she said, this turned into something very different than I expected. He nodded. Most real things do. Katy let out a soft laugh. This was supposed to be a journalism project, she said. What is it now? He asked. She thought about that, about the album, the routines, the quiet moments that had always been there, unnoticed, about the way her mother looked at him, and now about the way she understood it. It's a beginning, she said. Her father studied her for a moment. Then, almost imperceptibly, he nodded. And somehow that felt like the most complete answer she had gotten yet.